Way better than trying to download such big files and then try to upload it again.
For sure. Well, welcome everybody to our Main Street Visioning. This is actually, we call it day 3 because day 2 is day 1 recorded and available on our website for anybody who's interested to view it and comment on these websites. So I'm excited to have that up. It's the first time we've done this sort of thing where we record something and then put it up for comment. And this meeting, just want to welcome everybody. My name is Ryan Windish. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Sumner. And this meeting is really about getting into some more case studies and details of design ideas that the students are going to present. And so I'm really looking forward to this. Feels like things are a little more tangible maybe than the last meeting, which was necessary foundational and background information. So enough about me talking. I'm going to hand this over to Professor Bara Safarova.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I will share my screen. Here we are. So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back and welcome to anyone who is joining us for the first time. I am Bara Safarova. I am an assistant professor at the School of Urban Studies at UW-T. I teach Studio 5, which is an undergraduate studio, and we've been tasked with looking at vision for Main Street in Sumner. And as I've explained earlier, the project runs the whole academic year. We started in October and will end in June 2021, and we are in 6 weeks or maybe more 7 weeks in so far. And the goal of the studio overall was to understand existing conditions, identify issues and opportunities as they relate to Main Street in Sumner, and analyze case studies and best practices that we can learn from. And this is what we're going to be focusing on today. The other 2 bullet points we've done on Tuesday in the day 1 segment of this. So the goal for today, for the visioning day number 3, is to share case studies and best practices in the urban design discipline and get feedback and ideas on how design concepts could be adapted for Main Street in Sumner. The work will be shared in 5 topics. Here are all our topics that we've analyzed. We'll start with green infrastructure, move on to cycling and micromobility, modes of transportation, social infrastructure. We skipped out looking for case studies for housing and affordability because we think that's more of a planning issue rather than a urban design issue. And then we'll end with design and local character. And the topics are kind of sequenced to start from a larger scale and then zoom in all the way to the small nitty-gritty design ideas that we've got for Main Street. And here is a little slide about how today's going to work. We'll have these 5 topics and students will present 10 minutes per topic, and then we'll open it up for a discussion with the stakeholders for 8 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the public for a couple of minutes. There's going to be a timer here in the corner and I'll be timing it. And at the very end, we'll have a catch-all overall Q&A session on any and all topics. And with that, I would like to hand it over to our first speaker, first student, Sabrina, on the topic of green and blue infrastructure.
Hello and welcome. I will be discussing a best practice known as Green Alley, which is located in Detroit. The organization behind this design is NACDO, known as the National Association of City Transportation Officials. This concept and design was created around the year 2010. This best practice represents redeveloped alleys to promote walkability, safety, and traffic. It's common that residential alleys are known for low traffic, potholes, and puddles, which establishes unattractive and uninviting alleyways. This design addresses opportunities to promote safety through lighting and support with capturing stormwater through vegetation and pavement materials, while advocating walkability through material selection and pattern. In the diagram, it is labeled to be specific on the material and concept of the design. Number one is based on low impact pavement materials. Their pavement materials they discussed was pervious pavements with high reflectivity to reduce heat island effects. Number two is that the design concept is to be a pedestrian only operated alley or as a shared street. Number three is using permeable paving or rain gardens along the edge of the path. This method was used to prevent the overflow of stormwater. Number four is to adequate lighting within a pedestrian scale to encourage public safety within alleys. And number five is the network will be low speed and low volume links for cyclists and to enhance the intersection crossing. And the next slide, please. I am going to present a potential strategy in between the business and residential alleyway between Main Street and North Street. The green alley strategy could improve the issue with the existing parking lots capturing stormwater from east to west. So a green alley could be in the direction of east to west to capture stormwater and resolve this issue. This would be a great opportunity for pedestrian access to become more attractive and creating an alleyway to be inviting, interactive, walkable, safe, and playful. And just some questions I would like to leave you with is what is the topography surrounding Main Street and would this be beneficial for other alleys? Thank you.
Hello, my
Sabrina.
name is Jillian. Oh, sorry. Hello, my name is Jillian, and I will be focusing on green streets as a best practice. The firm that is covered in this topic was iQuilt, which is a firm that focuses on improving various aspects of the city of Hartford, Connecticut. And I'll go into more detail about that firm later, but for now I'd like to focus on a feature they proposed to implement in downtown Hartford, which was the use of green streets. And green streets incorporate elements of green infrastructure in order to collect polluted stormwater to filter it. Green infrastructure in particular uses permeable surfaces to filter stormwater so that it can be released or reused. And according to the EPA, it has been stated that the green infrastructure is both easy to maintain and inexpensive to install. And green streets assist the process of collecting water so that it may be returned to rivers or lakes without harming the organisms that live in or around it. And without the use of systems like these, the water passing through the water pipes can carry harmful particles and chemicals to a natural body of water. This can be used by the City of Sumner through the implementation of rain gardens or permeable surfaces along sidewalks, which both serve as a passive stormwater collection system. And another potential option that could be used is modified curb bulbs, which I was previously informed about, which could serve as a means of slowing vehicular traffic and provide more space for pedestrians at crosswalks. Thank you.
Oh, wow, that went by fast. This is Dennis, and I want to talk my best practice that's in front of you right now. This is a best practice provided by the NACTO guide. And as Sabrina mentioned, they're the National Association of City Transportation Officials. This guide focuses specifically on green and blue infrastructure as it relates to main streets and neighborhood main streets specifically. There's some that are a bit wider or larger in scale, but I felt that this one fit this site's the best. And you can see that there's various components. There's listed 1 through 7 from extended curb cuts, there's parklets, there's the rain gardens that you can see. But I wanted to look at this specifically as a visual kind of cue, because this is really what I was thinking about as, in a sense, the design idea visually for the site, if I were to think about concepts for it. Using the street trees as navigation tools and having those rain gardens at the end of the curb cuts for pedestrian safety and those sorts of things. And the examples I provided are going to be showing a bit more of that. So if you could go on to the next one. Thank you. This is an example concept that was actually realized. The firm that worked on this is Face to Place. They're located in Vancouver, British Columbia. This is the Bernard Avenue Revitalization Project located in Kelowna, British Columbia. And what I want people to be looking at specifically is as green infrastructure functions, it's one of its main purposes is to connect spaces along with the stormwater and the rain gardens and creating a more ecological, sustainable space. What I want to focus on mainly is using the green infrastructure as a navigation tool and as a way to improve the pedestrian experience. You can see in the images that street trees again align this main street and that there's wider sidewalks to allow for greater pedestrian mobility and to enhance safety. It may not be easy to see, but this is actually a wooner or a curbless street. So there's no real distinction in terms of topography between the pedestrian space and where vehicles can travel, but they use things like ballards along the sidewalks to separate pedestrian spaces. And they also use material changes and color changes in pavements to improve that navigation ability. And in that large picture on the left, you see that the green spaces that exist within this specific site are all connected using other green elements, and they feed into a larger, more natural green space that's to the west or to the left, excuse me. And that's the sort of idea that I would want to highlight within the Main Street design, is having the green elements and having the green spaces connected, but also feeding into the larger natural green space that already exists within the site. In this case, it would be that riverside, that riverbank. And if there's the potential to enhance that space to make it a sort of walkable linear park, that's something that would also be connected well to this case study and example. Okay, you can go on to the next one, please. And this is actually a KPG project. I know that Paul Fussell is here. He's the principal at KPG. So I did want to look at this Cleveland Street example as a specific case study. There isn't as much in the description of the case study in the site. There isn't as much talk about stormwater and rain gardens, but you can see those elements in the images are there. It's particularly that bottom picture on the left. You can see that there are rain gardens that are just connected to the pedestrian space and separate the pedestrian space from the street space, from the vehicle space, excuse me. And the walkable crosswalks, you can see that they're designated very well, and along with the Wooner style, it's also curbless. You can see that as well. What I wanted to show is the visual of this case study and how it fits with the last example. Now it can be realized in real life using the street trees and as navigation tools, and the way that it enhances the pedestrian experience for the many retail spaces that are on this Cleveland street. And I did want to ask whether or not this example was something that fit with the Main Street design. I understand that this is a slightly wider street, but the visual aesthetic is something that I thought might fit well within the Main Street site context. Okay, and that'll be all from me.
Thank you, Dennis. I want to open it up for 8 minutes to a discussion with the stakeholders now.
So I had a question, Dennis, about the project in Kelowna. Is that how you pronounce that, or Kelowna, or
excuse me, Kelowna.
Kelowna.
Excuse me. Yes.
You had pictured there the sketch shows some larger street trees spaced out. Was there any discussion or consideration of the root spread on those trees? Because one of the things we grapple with street trees is they end up spreading roots and lifting sidewalks and causing damage. Just wondering how they provided enough planting space, or how they dealt with that, or maybe you don't know.
In this example, when it was implemented in real life, excuse me, the size of the trees is actually much smaller. They're significantly smaller. The main component that I wanted to point out was the permeable pavement that they have below it. They have a pervious space for the air that allows stormwater to be absorbed into the soil around the street trees. And that's kind of what I wanted to highlight in there. The real thing doesn't look nearly as perfect as the sketch, but they do implement the same sort of principles. And the street lighting the lighting in the trees is also used as street lighting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I could add to that, Ryan, that there are actually many different methods to create places for tree roots in an urban Main Street sort of setting. I can't remember all the names of the products, but They essentially come up with particular formulas for soils that will encourage root growth in a certain area. There's soil cells, there's actually a whole kind of library of how you can do that to still get some nice sized street trees if that's part of the goal of the project. I think I'd also like to just add a couple of thoughts about this. These are all fantastic overviews of projects. And the proper way to look at these is that they have component elements that you would want to then customize, apply, scale to, both the alleyway behind Main Street and Main Street. And so the juxtaposition and how you place the elements and size them is what makes any of these projects successful.
I'd like to add that I like the idea north of Main Street, that little alleyway. It is a tighter road, but it would be really intriguing to see what could happen out there, especially with the connection to Rhubarb Alley. Yeah, right there. It's a 15-foot wide right-of-way, but maybe it could be a one-way or something along those lines. There is activity out there with Sources and with some of the other businesses. So I thought that was really interesting. The next slide, it might be 2 slides down. Keep going, maybe. Sorry. I really like this example. Tacoma used this very similar scheme in their, or not scheme, but diagram in their sound transit application, and they've done a really good job with what they've done. So additional slide, the next one. So on this one and the KPG example of Redmond, I'm curious, the street in Redmond, was it parking lining the entire road and they got rid of some of the parking to add the green space and stormwater? Is that something that the city of Sumner would be willing to do? If you look at the pedestrian sign on the left-hand side of the top picture, I'm curious if there was parking all the way up to the edge of the corner. And is that something that we could incorporate in our design? I think it'd be a worthwhile discussion, and maybe those trees are now narrower towards the road with the bigger planting areas, allowing for more access up and down that sidewalk.
Yes, that is a very good question, Derek. This particular corridor was a one-way couplet in downtown. It's parallel to Redmond Way. And what we did for downtown is we made them from one-way couplets to two-way streets. This particular corridor did have parallel parking, and we've maintained most of it, although we've augmented it with much more plantings. We did have permeable pavement. They're above a well protection zone area, so we had to be careful as to what sort of polluted waters might go down into the soil. And we also did things for the blind because it is curbless, so that they can navigate from one signal or to a crossing to another. And this particular picture is showing an 800-foot long super block that had no crosswalks except for at either end at the signalized intersections. And we introduced 2 mid-block crosswalks, of which then there's parking on either side.
Yeah, this is Michael Kosa, Public Works. I think we're all kind of talking about the same thing of, okay, well, with the amount of space we have in the corridor, there will be trade-offs. Those trees look like they're further out into kind of the beyond the sidewalk and into kind of the curb extensions areas. And with all of, if we did something similar to this, I think there would still be parking, but we would be losing a lot of parking, which I don't have a problem with, but I'm sure some of the businesses would have issues as well. So it's a matter of, it's going to be balancing the needs and the ways to improve the downtown area with the trade-offs. So, maybe being able to do bigger and better trees in areas that are in these extension areas, but then you can't do the whole tree-lined street. Like, this is, you can see the trees are only every so often, as opposed to more often. So it's definitely a give and take. There's only so much real estate to work with.
Absolutely, Michael. It is a balancing act. Businesses on main streets need the parking for convenience for their customers. The attributes that Sumner has is the back alley parking lots. So, you know, if you add some more trees and you balance it out, don't take out too much parking, encourage people to use the parking lots, create really nice ways for them to get back to Main Street, then you can create that potential. If you took off all the on-street parking, the community would probably come unglued in that concept, right? So you have to find just the right amount of give and take.
And that's why we have people that are not on staff. Those that are not on staff can recommend such things, whereas staff members have to live with dealing with the ramifications of those activities. So that's kind of the balance between consultants and others, and city staff members who have a hard time recommending to take away parking, for example. Whereas it might be easier for someone else to come in and take a look and give an honest opinion of what would work out really well here, and that helps inform staff. So
the goal is to try to create a really good place for business and community. It's for making sure that all those businesses have all the supported infrastructure to really make them a great place as a destination for people within the city, and actually, you know, people who are visiting from outside the city. And you just need to create that right balance, which is a bit of an art more than it is a science, to find that sweet spot.
Thank you, everyone. I want to open it up for a couple of minutes to the public now. We're right on time.
Bara, you probably just move on to the next module.
All right. And I couldn't get the timer working anyway. Okay, let's move on to topic number 2, modes of transportation. Jillian.
Thank you. This is Jillian again, and in regards to the modes of transportation, I would like to talk about the iQuilt plan in terms of walkability and public transit. So iQuilt is a firm that focuses on connecting various areas of downtown Hartford, Connecticut on a physical and cultural level. The iQuilt plan was started in 2007 and has stated that it hopes to turn downtown Hartford into a shared living room by bringing several uses into a single space. One of the main focuses the firm has for Hartford is walkability, and the firm as well as the city hope to make walking an activity that is healthy, enjoyable, and sustainable while allowing people to experience the culture of downtown. So iQuilt further encourage walkability by providing improvements to the transit systems in the downtown area, such as better signage, shelters, and clearer schedules. During a public event known as Envision Fest, the city borrowed a public bus and turned it into a miniature theater space for an improv group to perform. So the study aligns with goals of downtown Sumner due to the encouragement of walkability and cultural enrichment. Both downtown Hartford and downtown Sumner try to encourage people to linger in the city with the assistance of public events and easy access to public transit, such as the train. However, a question I had was whether downtown Sumner wants to have an equal use of the space regardless of the mode of transportation, or if the city wants it to be pedestrian oriented. And another question I had was, are there any other case studies that you know of that align with the goal of walkability that may be useful in the future? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stan. Today, I'm going to introduce you a transportation policy and design called Complete Street. In the first slide, we have the best practices of Complete Street. This is a street mix wheel that made by me. It shows how a complete street should be look like in a 60 feet wide street. A complete street should be designed and maintained to enable safe, convenient, and comfortable travel and access for users of all ages and ability regardless of their mode of transportation. Complete street allows for safe travel by the walk for those who walking, cycling, driving, riding transportation, or delivering goods. In short, Complete Street is designed for everyone. Next page, please. On this slide, we have the case study of Complete Street. This is Railroad Avenue in Los Molinos, California. Railroad Avenue is similar to Main Street Summer. They are both a 60 feet wide street, which we consider as a smaller town, and they are also close to the highway. Railroad Avenue features a high level of pedestrian and bicyclist use, as well as high volume of vehicular traffic. Before the redesign, vehicle speed and crash rate were pretty high. After a redesign in 2015, they added buffer bike lane, sidewalk, and crosswalk signal treatment. Improvement including stamp color concrete buffers, in pavement flasher at crosswalk island, lighting, street trees, and speed feedback sign. And the sources from the picture is from Google Map, and this information is from U.S. Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. And we're going to open it up to a discussion for 8 minutes with the stakeholders. Maybe we'll take it from the start, from the beginning.
I think you forgot about mine, Bara.
Did I? Where is it?
Mine's like right after Stan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. So my best practices is on road diets, and road diet is a roadway configuration known as, or road diet offers several high-value improvement at a low cost when applied to a traditional 4-lane undivided highway. So in addition to road diets, it improves like its low cost like to make, and it enhances safety, mobility, and access for all road users. So it's basically like a complete street too, or a complete street, use it in that way. And yeah, so the benefits are as listed: safety enhancement, access for all road user, low cost to build, reduce traffic within a road, and create bike lanes. And then my sources are in the bottom. And then can you go to the next slide? So my case study was on Center Street. So the designers were from Tennessee Department of Transportation, and the location was Kingsport, Tennessee, and it was created in 2014. So if you see on the left picture, it has a 4-lane street, and before it was unsafe to turn for cars or like crosswalks, and it was an unsafe road, and there was no bike lanes, and it cost a lot of money to redesign without road diet. But after the implementation of road diets, it created bike lanes, greenways, and economic opportunities for businesses, and better management of traffic flow, and also promote healthier lifestyle. And I feel like we can put this into for Sumner's Main Street, because we see that there's the park, and then the Ryan House, and another like green space at the school. And I feel like we can connect that by creating bike way and greenway for yeah, the site. So yeah, that's what I think we can do. Yeah, that'd be it.
Thank you. And now I'll open it up to a discussion.
I'd like to maybe provide a thought or two with both the complete street and the street diet. You want to confirm the travel lanes on Main Street and the width to confirm some of the assumptions around those two ideas, which can be very powerful ideas. They're both placed on the idea of the number of travel lines that exist out there. And I believe Main Street just has 2, so the reduction might not hold, but there are still concepts within both of those that could be applied. So again, it's about fine tuning and right fit.
The other item I'd point out for any sort of constriction of road access between curb to curb is the parades and floats that go down Main Street, and ensuring that those have the clearance that they need for the float and the people walking alongside it to maintain that access. If you're using a curbed approach, if it's more of a wooner for a curbless, then you might be able to do things and still have that access, but just something to point out there.
I like the road diet idea, and but I agree that I don't know that Main Street is necessarily the place to do it. And traditionally, we think of street closures primarily connected with events. And right now, I'm looking at Kincaid and Cherry, the streets that surround Heritage Park. And I think it would be interesting to perhaps close or modify them, not just around events, but more like weekends. And, again, I'm sitting in reality with COVID, and how do we create outdoor dining opportunities? I'm just trying to think of road diets in more of a temporary mind frame than a permanent mind frame, and that to not necessarily tie road closures with events, but more as an aesthetic that you can bring in at different times of the year.
I think that's very good points. I think that Main Street with it's just the right of way is pretty narrow for what is the consistent use. Scott mentioned the parade routes. We have our narrowest point on the parade route is 34 feet. And I don't know if they need all of it, but there are some tight corners when people are trying to maneuver those floats and marching bands and that sort of thing. So something to keep in mind is kind of a minimum width of clearway. Another, like you mentioned, Main Street is a bit challenging, but I really think that the Heritage Park area could be really looked at. To me, as a traffic guy, it looks like a sea of pavement with a lot of parking, but it means that, is there a better programming of that space? Are the roads the way they need to be? Do we need to have all of them? Should there be something that's more of a plaza feel as you're driving into that area? Should you make it feel like you shouldn't be there, and maybe that others have the priority, pedestrians or bicyclists as opposed to cars. There's kind of ways to make cars feel a little less comfortable going through there, and I think that would be a good opportunity for maybe not a traditional road diet, but same idea of trying to provide more spaces for life as opposed to spaces for cars.
Yeah, Michael, this is Ryan. I really like that idea. You could imagine, I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like if everything around Heritage Park now that's road was no curb, and it was all a different texture of pavement, like brick or whatever, creating more of, like you said, this plaza space where the car can go through there, but it's with slowing down, recognizing it feels like you're driving through the middle of a plaza, so you better go slow. And on top of that, it also would set up a lot of options and opportunities for food trucks in the downtown that we've talked about. I know Jill's, that's on her mind as well, you know, that could be programmed much more flexibility and also inviting, honestly, for somebody to show up and take advantage of a food truck and have some food.
It kind of the first thing that came to mind when you started talking about that was like Occidental Park in downtown Seattle, or some of those other it's almost like a hardscape brick, but without the focus on cars, and instead the focus is on the plaza space. And is there some way to take that park, and it's almost like you're expanding the park at that point into the street and into a plaza space, and that's something that could be I think very exciting, that could come out of this discussion, is how that park really ties into Main Street and brings people in and becomes part of the community, as opposed to right now it feels like it's a little bit withdrawn.
I could add. Go ahead.
I was going to say, would you want to do both Cherry and Kincaid, or just Kincaid where you have the angled parking and a lot more pavement?
You know, because it's a one-way streets, you do have flexibility on how you might close and move traffic through. If you do temporary closures, if it's a bigger event, you're going to maybe close it off anyhow as you're circulating traffic around. So I think you actually have a couple of different options there. That project in Redmond that was shown, it's curbless and connects right to the downtown park, which is adjacent to it. So they close it off through their big events, and they have 10,000 people show up, and they put booths right there on the street. They connect to the Redmond Central Connector into their downtown park. So what it is really then is how you manage and operate a large event and what spaces you need. So you could make a curbless on both sides, and then you could temporarily close it as you're, doing different size events, or maybe there might be summer nights where you just close it off. Everybody knows they can't park there, and you just make the plaza twice as big.
I like both. I like those ideas. The other thing that kind of strikes me is there's kind of this dead space between the point of Heritage Park and Main Street, and people kind of use it kind of to turn around. And even if it was like bricked out and just made a little more interesting, it might help Heritage Park feel more connected to Main Street. I mean, it's not a huge space, but there's just a little bit of disconnect that perhaps just with some different surface work, it would feel more connected, and it would still allow people to turn, as I'm watching someone do it right now. But it feels like the park is pushed back away from Main Street, and it is pushed back away from Main Street.
Excellent. Let's open it up to the public for comments. And I suppose if there aren't any members of the public, we can continue.
Yeah, let's keep moving.
Okay, so we're moving on to cycling and micromobility case studies, and Cipriano is going to start us off.
Hi, my name is Cipriano, and this case study is called Multi-Use Bike Rack, Virada Cultural 2011. This was located in Curitiba, Brazil, and the designer is Bruno Cipriano, year 2011. This case study represents a bike rack bench hybrid that is created for the Virada Cultural de Curitiba 2011. The concept and idea for these multi-use bike rack is to join various urban equipments, such as a playground, a bike rack, and a bench in a single urban furniture. The strategy is based on the stakeholder meeting. This is an example of how we can encourage pedestrian and cycling mobility. The creativity, design, and color gives a distinct identity and whimsy to the street. And a question would be that what are the issues do you see this design presenting on the site, and what do you think these urban furniture could be placed on the site? Next person. Up next is Kyle.
Sorry, I was muted. The one I'm doing is a case study for bike lanes and promoting safety. It's a urban bikeway design. The location is in San Marcos, Texas. And the case study is representing common placement of bike lanes and how effective they can be with having structures that promote safer mobility in the traffic flow and informative methods. When designing bike lanes, cyclists have exclusive spaces through the use of pavement markings and signage. Bike lanes are also placed on the right side of the street, and they have enabled cyclists to ride at their preferred speed without interference from prevailing traffic conditions, and cyclists may leave the bike lane to pass other bicyclists. Make left turns, avoid obstacles or debris, and avoid other conflict with others using of the streets. The main one that was used in San Marcos is conventional bike lanes. It increases comfort and confidence when bicyclists are through busy traffic. And there is a separation between bicyclists and automobiles, keeping it safer. And it visually reminds motorists of the bicyclist to the right of the street. And moving on to my best practice. This one was also done in Colorado Springs. It shows the width of the bike lanes must be 5 to 6 feet, as well with adjacent to guardrails and other physical barriers, and 2 feet wider than if the bike lane is near a parking lane. There also must be 12 to 14 feet in distance. Bike lanes make their the city safer for all residents, not just cyclists, and not just with regard of traffic accidents. There's parts of the growing pile of evidence suggesting that the bike lanes are more than just a way of people to get around on 2 wheels. They have profound and significant effects on a city's safer and social fabric. Done right, the bike lanes may be one of the keys to a happier, healthier city for everyone to live there. Their studies also show that when bikers are on the road and in their bike lanes, automobiles may tend to slow down if they see a biker, making it safer for the bikers and the cars that may be going over the speed limit, as well as reducing the speed limits when bike lanes are nearby. Next.
Thanks, Kyle. That's it. Let's have a discussion about bike lanes and what are the opinions of the stakeholder groups on having them in and around Main Street. We know you're planning them on Academy, but let's have a conversation about where else we could connect.
Well, this is Ryan. Given the narrow width of Main Street, it looks like if you're going to introduce bike lanes at all, you'd be losing at least one side of parallel parking. And I was just wondering if I don't know if you've gotten into more cross sections. I know I saw the complete streets cross section. Looked like there's at least one lane of parking impacted.
This is Jill from Main Street. I love the multi-use bike rack, but it causes me to think that Heritage Park really doesn't have anything available for kids. I mean, our kid park is kind of loyalty park, and Heritage Park is a small park. I think a discussion about you know, do you make this park a little more family friendly than it presently is? This definitely would bring that element in, but does it beg for more? And you know, who's the target customer for our businesses downtown? If we brought more families to town, is that our target customer? And again, putting it in a COVID mindset, it's millennials who have kids that are the group that seems to be coming out more. And so what do we offer? What does our downtown offer for families? And right now, I would say it's minimal. And so I think this is a great first step, but I think it does beg for more. Kids, you can't have 25 kids climbing on one apparatus. You know, you need a little bit more.
Thank you for the feedback.
To add to what you said, Jill, that maybe even begs for a stronger consideration around creating curbless, nice pavement around the plaza so that you could close it off at times and make it maybe a family friendly, you know, day a week or something where kids can kind of run around and not worry about some traffic and bring in activities just to encourage families to come in. So, you know, again, it's an operational thing. It's not just physical design, it's both hand in hand. And then I guess my thoughts around the buffered bike lanes is there a fantastic way to create a safe facility for bicyclists. And one of the goals for a successful Main Street is multiple ways to get to the Main Street. There are a lot of different modes of traffic. So again, applying this concept to Main Street, one needs to take a look again at the actual size of what's there and show the trade-offs of actually putting one of these in, or to look for additional corridors other than Academy that maybe, you know, provide the opportunity to apply this so that bicyclists can come. We're trying to create downtown as a destination. So really bicyclists are going there to get off their bike, then walk and shop, eat, etc.
The other thing that this makes me think about is not everything has to be on Main Street. And if we went out a block and maybe applied some of these things to the block north or the block south, it might expand our footprint and potentially create some opportunity for new business development to kind of spread out a little bit more. We're very concentrated downtown, and I think if some of these amenities were spread out, it might provide more opportunity for business to develop out a block.
Yeah, Jill, this is Ryan. I really think that's a great thing to be thinking about. I don't know if this is scope creep or not, but as we look at the alley north of Main and within a block of Main Street, how do we connect those? How do we create a common theme in anticipation of future growth? I mean, we're going to have a substantial property development right there on Maple Street, a block south of Main. They're going to have to do angled parking. I mean, we want it to look downtown. It's going to be designed that way. How do we, you know, tie in the themes that we're talking about? I think that's a great point.
I think it's not scope creep if it's all supporting what's going on Main Street. It's the support network that Main Street needs to be able to function, just like a utility that's moved off of the, you know, power poles that are back off of Main Street that support Main Street. These are the utilities that our city needs in order to support Main Street. So I think whether they look like those bike racks or not, I think bike racks are something that we need to look at when we put in the Academy Street bike lanes, and where those would go. Would they go on Academy? Would they go, you know, further toward Main Street? Is there a destination point where we can bring everybody to then transition from bike to pedestrian, and then walk the rest of the way to wherever they want to go. Seems very reasonable, but it also makes a lot of sense to give people a place to park, just like everybody else with their cars.
The development on Maple. The development on Maple, is the housing targeted towards a certain population? Is it targeted towards families or seniors or?
The mix of housing units is going to lean, I'm trying to remember. I think it's going to be a pretty typical mix of, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and then a little bit of 3 bedroom. If you tip it more towards 3 bedroom, you're tipping it more towards families, right? And if you tip it more towards 1 bedroom, it's more for your single professional commuter. So I can't remember the mix. Scott, do you recall on the mix for the Red Apple site?
Not for the Red Apple, I don't recall the exact number of how it breaks down, but I believe it's similar to how you described, heavier on the 1 to 2 with some 3s in there.
It might be interesting to look at the whole wedge there. I mean, I know there's 2 or 3 buildings there, but it might be, Heritage Park is so small that it is hard to program. But if it expanded that whole wedge, you could do a lot of things with it.
Yeah, I'm keeping some notes, and I made a note that we should be looking at giving that some thought. I agree, Jill.
Yeah, to build upon it, when we look at commercial main streets, we always look at them as districts. So we're always looking at all the surrounding streets, all the alleyways, all the connections, because all of these areas in the Puget Sound area are growing. So it's best not just to look at it as a single corridor, but a whole place.
Yeah, I really like the idea of looking around and behind Main Street, and I think the use of those bricks or different materials would provide a great connection and kind of give the pedestrian a natural invitation to kind of meander off Main Street and follow to the adjacent alleyways or adjacent streets that could lead places. And the Heritage Park is great and would connect to the newer developments, as well as lead towards the train station and provide a very friendly connection to the downtown and kind of funnel people that way. So I think that's a great use. I also really like the bike rack bench idea, and I think it also functions as a bit of a safety buffer. If you have kids at a park, if those are kind of towards a perimeter, you can kind of create a good environment where if you do bring kids to a park, it has a bit of a safety delineation feature to it as well. So I thought that type of material is great.
There's also, Heritage Park is also a special use park, and there's some caveats on the deed to the city from it when we purchased it. So changing it to a neighborhood type park might be a little bit more challenging. There's also some environmental concerns. It's kind of why we have the knoll there, if you will. So we do have some conceptual designs for it that I think the bike and the plaza type feel could be a good complement. I think it'd be hard for it to switch over to be more of a children's neighborhood type park. Very popular events that are there right now with the movies off Main and the music. That's kind of what our entire parks plan is focused on for Heritage, but I do think the expansion of it as more of a plaza is completely doable.
Could you do things like permanent chess or checkers or that type of thing that is not just focused on kids, but it is intergenerational and encouraging people to, commingle with others?
Yeah, definitely. I think those would be great additions to it. And of course, pickleball. That's for you, Scott.
I've got one question which is slightly different. Is there any uptick, or did you see any future in commuters coming in with like Brompton bikes, like foldable bikes on the train, and then picking up a bike and commuting around Sumner on their bikes, and then coming back and then getting off their bikes, leaving them there, and then commuting out? does that happen at all in Sumner?
I think one of the challenges is, unless it's changed, the train doesn't really operate on weekends. And so it's strictly commuters. I mean, I know on occasion for a Seahawks game or things like that, it'll run, but it's not really for recreational. It's getting from point A to point B.
Yeah, Jill's right. We've always liked the idea of having some kind of weekend run, and they're limited. They're always event related. You do see, however, commuters, when the commuting was going full bang without COVID, you were seeing people pull electric scooters out of the trunk of their car and go all the way into the station, or electric bikes coming in from further out, even across town maybe. So there's definitely some commute activity that's using what you termed micro-mobility options.
That's awesome. Are there any questions from the public? And if there aren't, I'm going to call on Cipriano again to take us through the social infrastructure case studies.
Hello, it's me again, and this is my case study, People's Canopy. Its location is in Lancashire, England, United Kingdom. The firm is People's Architecture Office, and it was designed at around 2015. So basically, the People's Canopy is an example of supporting social infrastructure on the street as a means to support the wide range of events that happens downtown. The canopy's ability to retract and expand makes good use for different times and locations, and also provide the needs for pedestrians such as weather coverage. The People's Canopy has the ability to be transported with ease because of the use of volunteer and citizen cycling to move it around. As you can see in the image, you see volunteers or citizens like moving it to places. And it's like a small parade of canopies. The canopy can also act as a barricade because of its size and color that makes a significant indicator that a certain location is closed off for pedestrian use. The issues addressed is that I recall that traffic issues occur through events instead of directing around it. But with this, it kind of solves that possible issue. And the opportunities is, as I stated before, was providing safety and security during events, allows events to go towards the nightlife as well. As you can see, it has implemented lights in it, and size and color is a good indicator of a barricade. You may go on to the next.
Okay, so I'm doing the next infrastructure, permeable parking. So in this, in Cleveland, Ohio, this was in a Slavic village. So this is a parking lot that integrates a stormwater slash bioswale collection area inside the parking lot. So this would be a nice implementation into Main Street because there's quite a few parking surfaces, parking lots, and it'll be a nice connection to the green infrastructure, the green vegetation, the green elements that will be hopefully implemented around Main Street, and it would enhance the user experience on Main Street, connecting them with the blue and the green infrastructure. And next. So this is just one of the best practices. It's already been mentioned here about permeable surfaces. So the top pictures are from Houston, Texas, where a parking lot was converted from asphalt to a material that's permeable. It's soft. It's a soft type of surface, which it is pretty much 6 inches of a repeated material that is laid down on top of different other permeable materials, and it is compacted with gravels and smaller sediments. And it provides a alternative. And so if green vegetation is not enough, and rather efficiency and more parking lot structure is what is needed and wanted, this provides a better, more efficient alternative for stormwater runoff. And the bottom two pictures is a location on the Pacific Northwest in Oregon and Portland, where they also create a median. So it's these bricks are perforated, have holes, so they have crevasses, and they're filled with sediment and gravel also. But this provides also a perfect example of a median to designate side street parking, like parallel parking or angle parking, just to have the discrepancy and variation between driving on and then where you can park. That'll be it, my part.
Hello, this is Abdul, and I want to start off with my case study. My case study was from New York and their implementation of the interim parking plaza by converting visually displeasing parking spaces into an active plaza. These plazas enhance local economic vitality, improve pedestrian mobility, and provide access to public transit and safety. This case study is relevant to our site because there are spaces in Sumner downtown district where there are underutilized parking spaces, which can be activated by implementing interim parking plazas for the public. This area has the potential to be a successful, productive space as there are many assets around those areas. These projects are cost effective and cities can gather data on the usage of the space to see if it would be beneficial to invest into a more permanent one. On the top is they're both from New York City. One is they have furniture, which is movable, and umbrellas where a pedestrian can sit and relax. And on the bottom is more of a green infrastructure, and we could apply that also if needed. Next, please. So this shows the potential strategies of a project, and I located Wood that's on the intersection of Main and Wood, right across Sumner Ryan House Museum. I noticed there's a big parking space, and I think it would be perfect to add a interim parking plaza in that area. Some key elements to these projects is a visually enhanced pedestrian space. It maximizes comfort and active uses. Furniture generally are movable seatings and tables for maximum flexibility, and the extended areas for open air activities. The benefits makes intersection safer and easier to cross for pedestrian. Slow traffic speeds into district. Activate underutilized spaces and vitalize surrounding streets and public spaces, creating foot traffic to local businesses and liven the street life in the neighborhood. And that's it.
Thanks, Abdul. And these are now all of the cases in this group. So I'm opening up for discussion.
That rolling structure in England was really intriguing. I'm wondering where they store that in the off season. And that's just one logistical thing. But I mean, what it does is it creates, I mean, obviously it creates a very festive environment. Like you say, this in your presentation, the street is clearly occupied, but it also creates a more weather friendly environment to be in as well.
It creates, yep. Go ahead, Jill.
Jill from Main Street. I love the People's Canopy. tenting, renting tenting, there's a rhyme. Renting tenting for events can be quite costly. Yes, storage would be an issue, so an organization like ours could not house that nor afford it. But again, in this era of outdoor spaces, I can think of a couple parking lots, not only, Main Street, but a couple of parking lots that you could easily convert to night markets or beer gardens or whatnot, and making it a little more Four Seasons rather than just having an exposed outdoor area. So I love that.
Jill, could you point us to which ones so that we just capture it right now? Which parking lots are you thinking?
There is a parking lot that is east of Trackside Pizza. And there is a parking lot that is north of Craft 19 Creperie. And that parking lot has a name. It's the King Alfred parking lot.
Thank you, super helpful.
Yeah, so those parking lots are on the south one's on the corner of Ryan Avenue and Main Street, and then the one north is on the corner of North Street and Ryan Avenue, just for some street location.
Does anyone know if this was purchased by the city, or is this more of a community organization that owns and operates and is responsible for it?
I personally would root for the city, because an organization like ours, we don't, presently, I'm sure this is quite an expensive apparatus, and I don't see us presently being able to do something like this. But storage, we just don't have the storage for it. And it would be something that the city is going to have a lot of say in when it goes up and what it's used for, and it could be utilized by a broader group. If it's just one organization's, then, but if it's the cities, it could be part of a variety of events.
For any large civic event, it's typically shared resources between city and other organizations. It varies, of course, from event to event. Something like this, what's really neat is the People's Canopy is both a pop-up event as well as a festival event, so it blends them kind of both together. Going to the parking lot concepts and the repurposing of them, there's also a middle ground that could be explored. There's a pretty good sized parking lot in downtown Redmond that an artist actually painted. So actually cars park there, but from Google Earth, you can see it's painted in a pretty amazing kind of geometry of colors. And so what you can do is paint parking lots that can be used for pop-up events and still used for the majority of the time is for parking. Or there might be times where you could take the parking off and make it into a pop-up event with seating and so forth. So there's a middle ground to be explored there.
With this type of, movable coverage, I wonder if, the YMCA or someone like that would have interest in something like this to use for their, summer events or different programming, and then also the ability for the city to use it, during the night market on Ryan Avenue or kind of limited functions, but it could be a good partnership.
So other thoughts would be actually right on that photo, there's another parking lot in between your green box and the cleaners right there. That is kind of, if you're looking like the corridor, people's corridor sort of canopy, look, as opposed to being wide. That one's kind of long and narrow. There's another place, and there's not that much parking there. Whereas if you're in some of those other lots, you're going to take away a lot of parking with your event. That one's a little bit smaller if you wanted a smaller level event. And I just had to at least chime in and say, as city staff, we would find it very difficult to put a big green box on that property. but at the same time, I can see the desire to have there's a lot of potential for a corner like that. But yeah, that makes it, it's a possible, some things are possible. There's a lot that could be done with that area, or even some of our public parking lots, to create the same concept only with land we already own.
I think Heritage Park would be a great use of it with Kincaid specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I think I recall from our previous meetings that someone mentioned that some of the parking spaces are permeable. Could you point us to which ones those are so that we know?
Our primary parking lot that's permeable is the one right next to City Hall. It's the employee parking lot immediately south of the City Hall building. I think from a stormwater perspective, I know there's a lot of those, kind of green areas that we're showing, but with landscaping and water entering certain spots. But if we converted our parking lots, we might be able to do it without even having a lot of that greenery. Or you could choose to have greenery that's non-functional, more just landscaping. Because of our climate, we don't necessarily need to have a lot of storage for runoff. We have our storms are very long and but low intensity, whereas other folks don't have that luxury. So our lot's been functioning very well, and I would probably recommend similar applications if we decided to go in and do other lots. It is quite a bit extra to go in and excavate and put all that additional drainage material underneath. So it's much more cost effective to just put it in a regular old asphalt parking lot, but you get the stormwater benefit with putting in a permeable one with all the gravel below.
There's also a permeable project that was done with 10-foot wide concrete in the city to the north of us, Pacific. That's 136th Avenue. It turns into Valentine when you go into the city of Pacific. And they did this lengthy, wide, really bicycle-friendly installation. And they did some kind of like micro rain gardens. I can't remember exactly how they were all set up, but they were really compact, but they were supposed to basically do the same thing a rain garden did, but not take up as much room and not be as beautiful either, but they did what they were supposed to do.
We also are putting in a permeable concrete sidewalk just north of the YMCA, between YMCA and Main Street over there off of 160th. That's in design.
Are there any questions from the public?
Hi, this is Kelly. Is it too late to ask a question?
Not at all.
Okay. On that last topic, just regarding the parking back, I think it was one more, maybe one more. The parking next to the day and night grocery, there we go, that one. I really like the idea of the parking plaza. I would have assumed or thought that what is highlighted in green, is that not commercial? Isn't that owned by someone? Okay, so that's not owned by the city. What about the little parking area next to it? If that was, it just seems like it would be a good opportunity to tie in that back alleyway right behind it, and maybe as a bookend on one end and down to the Craft 13 on the other, as a way to then tie into the park and just sort of make almost a circle around Main Street. Anyway, that was my thought.
Yeah, that is publicly owned. That's city-owned parking, that little small angled parking lot right there. So that's a great idea.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? We love to hear them.
With the interim plaza or the interim parking plaza, would the spot next to the day and night that is city parking, would you want to have certain type businesses next to it or near it for users? And would we have other city parking that we own that might better benefit those people that would use it? Right there, you've got the grocery and you have a laundromat next to it. There's no real food gathering, and that's what I kind of would typically think the parking plaza would be used for. There's not a lot of activity down there. So unless there's a redevelopment, do we have another parking lot that we could try that in?
The reason why I put the interim parking plaza there is because of the Ryan House. I know that that the city uses it for what's that festival called? Rhubarb Festival. So I just want to create more space in the area alongside with Heritage Park, but I just want just a little bit more for the public. That's why I put it in that area, or I was thinking of that area.
Well, great comments. We should definitely consider all of the publicly owned parking lots and kind of figure out an overall strategy. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to move on to the last topic. This is the design and local character group. I think this is going to be a slightly longer. So Sabrina, take it away.
Hello, it's Sabrina again. Here is my case study in regards of the Dexter Alley Park, which is located in Montgomery, which was designed by the Foshi architect firm and was created in 2020. This was the results of a demolished building. The design was revolving around civic space. This alleyway connects to the Montgomery Municipal Parking Deck on Washington Avenue to Dexter Avenue. And there were multiple issues, one being no one waterproofed the adjustment buildings' basements after the demolishment, and the slope of the sidewalk was preventing the opportunity for alley storefronts. And in their design, they addressed this with creating an engaging space with ADA ramps and providing outdoor space for residents to shop, relax, and dine. And in the design images that show before and after, the design features a cast-in-place concrete retaining walls in an organic pattern. The curves of the walls has platforms for nearby stores to have outdoor seating. And the concrete sidewalk opens up in a curved pattern to provide planter beds and tree wells. And there is a concrete pattern to highlight the stepped terraces. But as I move on, this was a connection to a potential strategy with the Rhubarb Alley in the next slide. Yes, so in the next slide, this is a connection to the Rhubarb Alley as a potential strategy. Main Street can link with North Street, where it can end and or begin. This would be great. This would be a great way to expand the pedestrian connection from Main Street to move up North Street, and also create a connection with the businesses and the community from North Street to go to Main Street. And it would complement the future housing development to be more walkable near North Street. Some questions I have are, how could this concept work with festivals? And would permanent seating be a positive impact for the community and businesses? And a follow-up question is, if so, how would the seating be arranged? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jose, and I chose a best practice from NACTO about gateways, and this study goes more into curb extensions in the gateway, and the practice talks about having curb extensions in intersections and how that makes it more pedestrian friendly and reduces the crossing distance for pedestrians on the street. And the curb extensions also create a bottleneck effect by making the street more narrow and slowing down the traffic, making them more aware of where they're entering and making them aware also of pedestrians. You can also combine stormwater management features like rain gardens with the curb extensions to absorb the rainwater. Next. And for my case study, I chose Canyon City in Colorado by the design firm of Tangram Design LLC. And for this case study, I focus more on the gateways, but more towards the signs for the gateway, because in this city, they added gateway signs to the east and west side entrances of the town to show pedestrians or cyclists or motorists when they're entering. The sign indicates that to the travelers that they are somewhere pretty special. They're also going to add like directional signs pointing people to interesting places in the downtown district to go visit. And I wanted to connect this with Sumner by hopefully having the opportunity to add some gateway signs to the east and west side of Main Street to help define the downtown area of Sumner a bit more. Next.
Hi, my name's Joe. Today I will be talking about the best practice about historical preservation and redevelopment. So on Tuesday, I talk about how the materials and design element around Main Street, and I have opportunity to talk about how to create a consistent color and element for Main Street. So I use one of the best practice case studies from China, Guangzhou, China, and I get that from the Desire Lab D+H. Is the year is April 14, 2017. The interesting thing is I actually been there before when I was a kid, and those alley is super old and is about my grandma's age. And last year when I went back, though, the alley was amazing. So this design called from redesign from 3 abandoned alleyways to create a unique space. So it's for new and old resident, and in those they create a system to activate those area, a path to plan with unique historical pavement, then connect different buildings and surrounding communities. And also how you can see on the right picture, it's super tiny, but there's a lot of people going there for super tiny shopping. They have a lot of historical shopping mall over there. And the down one we can see is nighttime. It becomes super light and people would feel safety to go over there. So I think that would be a good idea to implementing in Main Street, so it become more attractive for people to go over there even nighttime. And who would decide for new and old resident that linger around. So also why that is super successful for this case studies and best practice, because it create an urban environment that and also rebuild empty space and turn it to something more welcome, refers of lighting and good pathways. Next, please. And the second one, I find another case studies about how to divide and the surface for the downtown. So this is located at Ebo Campo, Texas. So they have a pretty similar old building, those traditional brick buildings, and some modern new structures. And this brick building contribute positively to visual and local character of the area, which is really similar to our site. So opportunity would be building a facade treatment to help activate street life and more walkability in downtown, in including awnings, bricks exposure, and design element that refer to architecture in Campbell, which is similar in our site. So you can see on the left-hand side, you can see how they look before and how Desire used the new color, and they add some new outside setting and also facade to more creating a consistent look for the downtown area. So it could be interesting how we do the same thing on Main Street. Thank you.
Hello, it's me again, Sip. And this is my design local character best practice. It's called High Loop, and the location is Shanghai, China, with a firm of 100 architects, and it was proposed around July 10, 2020. High Loop is a proposal for the renovation of Puji Road pedestrian bridge in Shanghai. The High Loop express some of the ideas and concepts based on our stakeholder meetings, and it provides opportunity and ways to give back the streets to pedestrian and micromobility as the main users of the space. These concepts develop opportunities of pedestrian space while providing mobility, plus with the unique characteristic, this could provide an identity for Main Street. This could enhance the attraction and programs within the space, which the opportunities could be providing whimsy, color, and interaction on the site. It gives this welcoming space and playful atmosphere and provide a unique and identity, and it's really eye-catching. And questions I would like to ask is, even though this is a bridge design, what are possible concepts that can be present on the site? And what are other strategies can we implement to add creativity and color to our design? And I think that was the last one, so.
Thank you, Cipriano, and I'll open it up to questions. Or a discussion, rather.
Well, I was just hoping that Cipriano could maybe describe a little bit more about what's going on with the High Loop. Is this a route that you're trying to get people to follow on the blue line? Are there points of interest? Kind of what's going on here?
That is a good question. So in these color schemes, basically it determines, I know it's hard to, like the image is really like blurry, but in the, like, for example, the orange dashed line is supposed to be like the relative movement of circulation of people and pedestrian and cyclists, while other locations such as the little like bumps off the road would be like planters, lounge spots, like stop spots, and like the little things in between, like the little orange circular motions are like performance areas, lounges. In a way, it's like all mumbled up, but also have like this like linear system to it. Did I kind of answer your question?
Yeah, that helps. I get a little bit better of a feel for it. There's two different modes illustrated, sounds like, as well. Thank you.
I really like a lot of this presentation. There's a lot of really exciting things in my mind. The one that we started off with the alleyway, with Rhubarb Alley, and then again, the example of the old historic alleyway. Seeing how the building changed the side, and they have the balconies up top and new entrances and windows. We have currently one of them that borders Rhubarb Alley is redeveloping that site as we speak. I think revisioning of Rhubarb Alley could maybe incorporate some of that, or the developer could incorporate some of that into what they do. And then the discussion of bringing that back farther all the way up to where the Buttered Biscuit is, which is the business north of the city, north of Main Street. The far left there, it's the little orange labeled restaurant. I think that would be more inviting for people that are parking up north, and maybe would make people feel safer and more excited to park there as opposed to on Main Street, and maybe alleviate some of the things we've been discussing about parking concerns on Main Street. We could do that possibly down on Kincaid again with Heritage Park, and maybe they could be something similar in nature, kind of a look and feel of, hey, here's your access lanes to Main Street and available parking. I think all these slides, I think there's a lot of great input on this one. And even the next slide and the one after. This is a really good one. Thank you.
And maybe to add to what Derek said, this is the fun part of it when you get to look at all these details. And I think what Derek's saying is, there's the details can't be applied all across the board. And so you look for the opportunities. Not all the facades in downtown need to be enhanced, but where there is those opportunities that should be identified. And then working with a property owner, they might see once you show them a drawing, how that could actually better improve the attractiveness of their building. And that goes with every one of these details. This for me is exciting because it's kind of spicing up downtown to make it more friendlier or attractive, accessible, all these different elements that just make the whole place and district feel that much more welcoming.
I want to add in there the gateway sign. Ryan and I have been commenting here. I think that's really fun. You could do it over on Main and traffic. You could, I think, Ryan, do it over on Wood and Main as well. I think the activation part that was talked about with the historic section of in China off the alleyway there could be a really neat thing for those businesses that have frontages on the north side of Main Street. So the ones we've been talking about, that 15-foot right of way, could that be more pedestrian oriented with the brick walkway where cars know that they're not the majority of it? It's kind of like what Paul was saying as well. These business owners, if they see the opportunity, they might be able to redo how they do business. So a lot of this is really exciting.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, in Redmond, they've got a pretty major trail now that runs through, and I remember going on a field trip up there, and they said some of the businesses reoriented towards the trail because there's a lot of traffic on that trail on Saturdays. So similar to how that alley opened up when it became an inviting place. Yeah, it's a cool idea.
Yes. Yes. To add to that, we worked on the Redmond Central Connector, and that is indeed the case. Creating very positive spaces that are welcoming the people, property owners in these districts want to participate with that. It helps them lease out spaces. It helps the people who are leasing residences in those buildings to want to be part of that location. Another different thought is around the gateway concept. Gateways provide identity and theme to a place. So any gateway for downtown needs to reflect the community values of both downtown and Sumner as a whole. So there's a whole exploration as to what those ingredients and materials might be that really, fit with it. And then as people enter and exit the district, really feel like they're entering a special place.
I was going to ask about the Rhubarb Alley area, because I really haven't looked at it much before, but this kind of gave me the idea that, there's a lot of potential for vertical. I don't know how, the Berryland building is redeveloping or what the interest is of either party on either side. But first thing I kind of thought was, well, could it be, catenary lighting or, some sort of, you've got a lot of vertical space. It means you don't end up with a lot of sunlight. So there's the, lighting aspect of it, but then there was also you've got two structures. Would it make sense to look at, we just talked about a canopy. It could be something where you could look at a canopy and say, well, now I have, even if, that could be a permanent canopy, for example, where you now have a space that's essentially, rain-free. That could be a real feature in a place like the Pacific Northwest, to have some outdoor events, outdoor seating, whatever it happens to be, just in that alley because of the kind of the corridor that's available. So I really like the idea of going vertical because that's what you got in that space. Well, how about we use it?
That's great. I want to open it up to the public. We want to hear from you.
Hi, this is Kelly. I'm sorry, I don't want to be the only public talking, but I really like these ideas, and I've been to a couple places with some alleyways sort of like these, and they often put those patio lights stringing sort of side to side, back and forth, and it really sort of even adds almost a romantic feature to it. And I also like the signage. I think traffic in Maine makes a lot of sense for the big signage. I think that seems like a natural beginning of Sumner sort of thing. I think on wood, not as much. Well, I see it either way, but I really like that idea. That's all.
Thank you so much. I think this is the end of our presentation, so we could open it up. Ryan, what do you think? We're running early, so should we do a 15-minute kind of overall discussion? People have more thoughts about other topics.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Just to kind of open it up. We've seen a lot of different concepts, good ideas. I think people are excited about the possibilities and how this kind of fits into Main Street. I'll just throw this out there. I'm kind of intrigued with this idea of how do we, and this is reflective of some of the things we saw on Tuesday, that cyclist and bicycle connections to the kind of the Main Street area. We know the city's planning on the bike lane on Academy Street, which will take the rider like right into the train station. So how do we make, is there a way to get that connection up to Main? And then how do we make a connection from Main as a bicyclist out to the trail at that's further west? I took a quick look at the cross section. Once you get over the railroad tracks to the west on Main Street, to the west of the railroad tracks, I was hoping there'd be room there for some more bike lanes, but it doesn't really look like that's the case. But to make that connection would be great. And then as you go north on that alley, and then you go, as the one diagram showed, all the way up to North Street, that connects into what's called Railroad Avenue, which is this little narrow side street that runs parallel to the railroad tracks. Is there a way to, I guess I'm just kind of thinking, how do some of these areas begin to become connections through the area for cyclists and other people wanting to connect with the trail?
So with the cyclists, Ryan, I think it's interesting because you've got the Cannery Way Bridge. A lot of people will use West Valley Highway, Valley Avenue into Puyallup, and that's even the route for Seattle to Portland. Mm-hmm. So I think extending, making sure we get all the way to at least Main Street would be really good. So between the railroad and then to the main intersection there, making sure that those businesses and that frontage is incorporated in the design features. And this is, I think Paul was talking about, what materials do you use? Do we want to incorporate the new Cannery Way Bridge in some of those elements to make sure that there's a uniform look and feel? This is all really fun and exciting. So.
Also, for those who are interested, I posted a link to a video from 2011 when the Rhubarb Alley, as we've been talking to it, was first kind of reconfigured by the Pomegranate Center and a community project.
So I think, you're talking, I was thinking the same thing with the Academy and trying to how could we connect that to downtown somehow? And one option would be to come off of Academy at Kincaid and make a kind of a stub connection off of Kincaid that runs right into the park. and then put some bike parking in the park. Would be, and then that kind of drops you right into the park there. Kincaid is not, I mean, it will be up against that new Red Apple site, but it's not really a heavily used one right now. It'd be an opportunity to, you know, if we wanted to create a stub that goes north to, you know, to the park, then that gets you to Kincaid, yeah, right in there. It gets you up basically to Main Street at that point, where you could walk your bike, or you could try to hang a left and kind of head over the Main Street. There's the Main Street area, you know, as well, and then that kind of gets you over toward the bridge, over toward Cannery Way as well. So gives you gives you that couple crossings that you can choose to hop across. So, but yeah, it kind of starts with Academy and, you know, tying into the station, but then, you know, maybe Kincaid's the way to route up, and it routes you to a park where we have some land that we can do bike parking with pretty simply. And even if it's not a full bike facility, we can mark it as a shared, you know, bike facility, and just put some Cheryls out there and make that the route, and put some wayfinding signage in or something. You know, and have a bicycle parking sign, turn right. Give people some of that concept of where they can go. And yeah, I like the idea of railroad being a potential, what should we do with it? Railroad Avenue to the north of downtown being a really crummy conditioned old street. Yeah, just north of the Buttered Biscuit there. Very narrow, basically used for access. But maybe there's an opportunity to use it as a bike path. I don't know, or some other path. It's right up against the train tracks, which, you know, is good or bad, I'm not sure, but it does connect there. And
well, it functions more like an alley when you go down that way. It does go up and connect to, if you go a little bit north in the view, it connects to Washington Street at some point, which is Washington is one of the few east-west connections that we have in Sumner as well. So, and then the other interesting thing, yeah, there's Washington. The other interesting thing is, not that we're going to get a railroad crossing, so I probably shouldn't even dream about it, but if you connected there over, you could get back over to Friar, which has bike lanes going north out of downtown. But we're not going to get a railroad crossing, I'm pretty sure.
I would like to add that the presentations today were fantastic. All the concepts that you expressed and the examples were really clear and understandable. And I hope all of the students understand particularly what Michael, Ryan, and Derek have expressed around the details of downtown, the actual specific locations, is that you want to take those concepts and not apply them in big, broad strokes. You really now have to get to the finer fabric of downtown Sumner, both Main Street and the surrounding streets, to see where appropriate concepts really apply and, you know, really make a better place. So the presentation at the kind of global level that you did is great. Now the real work is getting down to the nitty gritty of where does this concept work, or maybe I can't use that whole concept, I've used parts of that concept, and to really make the access, the place that people are spending time in that experience that much better.
Paul, I was going to ask, and a great presentation by the students. I do want to say that. Like I said, this is where it kind of gets, for me, it gets more fun. You get more tangible things to look at, and imagining how this could work in Sumner, and really well done. And I also like the fact that your examples were international. I mean, we were in China, we were in England, we were around the globe, which I thought was really cool. One other thing that I was going to ask Paul is there anything, Paul, that the students might have missed? Some idea out there that's kind of a big thing that we should really not forget about?
You know, to be honest, it covered all the ground quite well. So nothing actually comes to my mind that was missed. So a good job in kind of pulling all these pieces together.
Everybody's on their own. Well done.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how we can take the ideas and apply them, and which ways are ways that we can really distinctly say, all right, this is something that we can go from a big idea to an application to a project. And it's something that we can say, all right, this is something that is unique and of an appropriate size for us to be able to bite off a little chunk and make a change that really makes a difference in downtown. So very exciting.
I could maybe provide this sort of insight that if there's a concept that you're starting to apply and you realize it's not working, throw it out. You don't need to hang out too long in that. You want to test these things. And then you really should think about it. If I owned the building, if I'm a property owner, if I lease space in this particular storefront, or if I'm there for an event, you know, think about it from the user group. Think of it as the person who's in a vehicle. Think about it as a bicyclist, as a pedestrian, and that will also help you vet through your concepts as you're applying them.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think we've got a much better understanding now. I think the most kind of fruitful thing for me was that you're all excited about kind of, you know, spreading out of Main Street and then trying to figure out how we can attract people to Main Street, that not everything has to happen on Main Street. I think we're all going to be very excited about expanding and bringing things in. We've got a lot to kind of get through now. We've got notes, we've got it recorded. So we're going to get to put it all into a report, kind of sit on it over the break. And then in January, we'll start cracking with the design. So we definitely want to be, well, we'll first present in December at the beginning, our final report, kind of finalized it all together. But then we're looking forward to designing it together with all of you. Starting in January.
All right, that sounds like we might be wrapping it up here. So, well, thank you everyone for taking the time, and students, thank you for some excellent presentations. I was very impressed with the depth and breadth of what you covered today. And we'll be, like Professor Barra said, we will be getting into the details next quarter, really putting this all together. So it's gonna be good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all your feedback.
Thank you.
Yes.
No.
I'll see you back in class, students.
Right. Okay.
Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank you, guys.
much.
On the 7th. Yeah.
Look forward to our next meeting. Bye-bye.
Yeah.